Okay, y'all. Is it live yet? So hard to know. So, I get really, really excited about oils and essential oils and how they work on the body. And I know that I get giddy, and I just want to impart to you and my friends why it's so exciting. And what's funny is it's not new. This is not new stuff. This oils were being used well before Jesus ever walked the earth, by countries everywhere, continents. And then the scientific method came about 500 or 600 years ago, and our world started to change, and we moved away from God created solutions and move towards synthetic man-made solutions. So I reading a book. I've read this several times, and I'm reading it again. And every time I read it, I get so much more information about it. I would highly recommend it. Can you see it? It's called Healing Oils of the Bible. But I know that there are skeptics, and I know that there are cynics about oils, and call it snake oils and essential oils, and I totally get that. I was in your shoes. I was one of those people. I think it's very important to ask questions. I think it's very important to do your own research and form your own opinion. I love to share what I'm learning. I don't by any means consider myself an expert. I come from this position with complete humility, but I'm learning, and it's so exciting to kind of start putting pieces together and to rediscover the power of the plant and rediscover truly the power of what God put on this earth. So I kind of laugh and say that I'm getting crunchier and crunchier in my old age, but it's true, because the more I learn, the cleaner I want to be in my entire life. I want to eat cleaner, which I have a long way to go there. My cleaning agents are clean. I don't want harmful chemicals. I want my skincare to be clean. And so I'm always striving to be better and to learn. And I'm a constant learner. I love studying. And so this stuff kind of excites me. And I get so giddy, and my mom and dad are probably just like so sick of hearing me call them and telling them about what I've learned. But I want to break this down into kind of a series of lives, because I don't want to go too long, and I don't want to bore you to death, especially if you're not totally excited about how this all works. But I think that there's definitely a lot to learn just today. Today's just going to be a little bit of introduction as to what I plan to go into. But I want to go back to the 90s, because in the 90s is when I was in high school. I graduated in 92. And I remember I had a friend that was into vitamins, and they were healing and wonderful. And I was a total skeptic. I never said it to her, but I thought it was all a sales gimmick. And truthfully, it could have been. But I never believed in that hokey homeopathic stuff. And ironically, right about that time was when I was getting really sick, and I didn't even know it yet. But I was overusing antibiotics prescribed by my dermatologist for prophylactic or preventative treatment for my skin. I didn't even have acne, but I was taking long-term low-dose antibiotics. And between my junior and senior year, I mean, I played tennis every day of my life, but I gained a ton of weight for no reason. I started having stomach pain, and I had my first yeast infection. So for me, that was the beginning of a long road of health crisis that just got progressively worse. So I just want to say that at that time, I believed in medicine and doctors, and I trusted everything that they said. I had no reason not to. And I'm not saying I don't believe in medicine or doctors now, but I'm just saying then I had really very little interest in getting to know about plants or vitamins or any sort of health remedies that were natural, because I, like most people, had been programmed to believe that medicine was the only way. So fast forward, I jumped into the essential oils bandwagon about, I would say 7 or 8 years ago, kind of when everybody did. And I acknowledge that it was a bit of a craze, but I was completely desperate. I was super sick by that point. I had no idea what was ahead of me, and I had no idea I was about to get way worse before I got better. But medicine wasn't helping me. Doctors were shaking their heads at me, telling me that I'd be on pain medicine for the rest of my life. I had little kids. That meant I couldn't drive, or I shouldn't drive, and they made me loopy. That wasn't an option for me. And the kind of pain that I had in my stomach was pain that pain meds didn't touch. I mean, it was just blinding. I fainted from pain. And I remember the day that I just got the biggest pit in my stomach because I realized that my doctors, multiple experts, I mean, I went to Mayo Clinic, I went to Houston, I had the top care that I could get. But they didn't know what to do with me. My Crohn's was very unique and very unusual at the time. And I was at Mayo Clinic seeing the best of the best doctors. And I flew up there with my husband. Last minute we got in. I was so excited. This was going to be the answer, and I was going to be healed. And the doctor that I saw shook his head after, they look at me and they think I look fine. And then they look at my files and they just dumbfounded that I walked in the door. And he said that most people with the severity of the disease that I had come into his office in a wheelchair. And he told me if I was on the Oregon Trail, he was betting on me surviving and making it to Oregon. And that's really all he said. Like, there was no hope. I had no answers. And I had gone all the way to Mayo Clinic because that was the end all be all. And this is my healing. And I lost all my hope. I cried the entire plane ride home from Rochester because I just knew that we were going to come home with all the answers in the world. And I had none. So at that point, I started looking for my own answers, and I studied up on diet. I went on a massive diet that was unusual for 10 years ago, but now the world's kind of doing it, figuring it out. But it was very simple, just lean protein and vegetables, no sugars, no alcohol, no yeasty anything. But in that time, the first 5 days of that diet, which I've probably mentioned before, but I got incredibly sick. Like, for 6 days, I puked my guts up. It was coming out everywhere. I'll just say that. I was sneezing, I had a runny nose and everything. And basically I was killing off yeast. And that yeast is what began 20 years earlier when I was in high school on those long-term low-dose antibiotics that made me get puffy. And made me look like I'd gained weight, but it was actually a yeast overgrowth. But after that, I did that diet for 45 days, and I felt like I was 16 again. And there were things in my body that I never even told doctors about because I had so many other bigger issues that disappeared. I had energy, my joints stopped hurting. Of course, my stomach stopped hurting. I didn't have heartburn. I had this one funny little itch on the top of my foot that went away. Just all these crazy things. So it was at that point that I'm sure we've all seen this quote before. There's a meme for it, and I hung it on my refrigerator. But that food can be the worst form of poison or the greatest form of medicine. And it's so true. Our food is so important. What we put in our body is so important. And for me, that just really hit the nail on the head. So I learned at that time that my food could heal me or my food could hurt me. And while I had huge improvements, I mean, I wasn't on pain medicine. I walked away from pain medicine cold turkey, and I didn't need it. But I still had Crohn's disease. I wasn't naive enough to think that my Crohn's was gone, but my symptoms were alleviated. So soon after that, I was learning about essential oils, and I studied and researched essential oils the same way I do everything else. But the skeptic in me wanted to know why. Like, I can't take something hoping it's going to work. I want to know why it works and how it works. And by being on immunosuppressants, which is what they give people with autoimmune diseases, I had zero immune system. I had no fight in my body. And I have 3 kids coming home from preschool and elementary school, and they're always sick. They always have runny noses. And I was just sick all the time. I got pneumonia twice, which was really the breaking point and why I had to get off those immunosuppressants. But I was truly what I call a petri dish for using essential oils, because you have no idea the weird things our bodies get when we don't have an immune system to fight it. I had my gums started bleeding, and I am fanatical about taking care of my teeth. I go to my dentist appointments. I was brushing. I was to the point where I was brushing so many times, and my dentist couldn't figure it out because my history was not that of gums bleeding. And I even had a time where they came in and they injected antibiotics underneath my gums because they thought perhaps I had some infection under there. Well, that didn't work. So I started reading up on my essential oils. There was an amazing essential oil I used, and I started swishing with it every night before I went to bed. And my dental appointments had come to where they were having me come in every 3 months. Like, it was really bad. And I showed up at that last dental appointment, and the hygienist who'd been treating me the whole time was flabbergasted. She called the doctor in. She said, look at her. Like, she's not even the same patient. Her gums aren't bleeding. They're healed. They're like, what did you do? And I knew they were going to ask because I knew that I was so much better. And I showed them this bottle of essential oils that I used. And, they rolled their eyes and were like, wow, we sure don't know what happened. We don't know what changed. I'm like, I do. I know what changed. It's the only thing I changed. And it was pretty amazing how just that use of essential oils completely took care of this bleeding that was so strange I had in my mouth. And it was because my immune system was suppressed. Also, another time I had a really painful cyst and I couldn't get in to see the doctor. And I read that lemon oil actually dissolves the, what's it called? The lining of the cyst, or the wall of the cyst. And so before I could get in to see the doctor, I just started putting lemon oil on it. And lo and behold, the pain went away. The next day, the pain was less and less. Then I just started drinking lemon oil in my water, and the cyst completely disappeared on its own. Of course, I still went to see the doctor because I believe in medicine, and he couldn't believe that it disappeared. He said the kind of cyst I had was only treated by draining it, and more than likely it'll come back. And that was 8 years ago that I had that cyst, and I've never had it return. So there's value in essential oils. I was blown away, and I love telling other doctors and people in the health world my stories because they can't believe it either. And even my doctor was like, tell me about that lemon oil. So there's value in oils. So many times after that, I was a huge believer because I had experienced healing from those oils. And, my family would come along and they would have an issue and they'd be like, oh, no, essential oil, they're good for you. We're so happy you have them, but I don't need them. So what's funny is a little bit over time, my husband had food poisoning, and I gave him what I would have taken, and he was flabbergasted. Like, literally within 30 minutes, he was off the floor and feeling better. And he said, that stuff is amazing. Same thing with my mom, and then my dad, and then my kids. And I got to the point where they started believing too, because they had to experience that healing to know there was a difference from point A to point B. So most people who know me know I have a huge faith. My faith is very important to me. I've been through the ringer, and I couldn't have made it to this point without that. But my interest in essential oils brought about my interest in the story of Jesus. When Jesus was born, why the heck did they bring frankincense and myrrh and gold to Jesus? Why was that a gift? I mean, if somebody brought me frankincense and myrrh to the birth of my child, I wouldn't know what the heck it was for. But back then, that was huge. That was this just valuable gift. And it turns out that frankincense was a really valuable oil for healing and preventing disease. So I had a friend introduce me to this book that I mentioned, The Healing Oils of the Bible, and I read it from the edge of my seat. I was constantly quoting it to my family, and they kind of started getting annoyed because my quotes ended up being pages and chapters to where I was just reading it out loud to everyone because it was so fascinating. And it shouldn't be fascinating, because what I'm learning is what the world knew hundreds of years ago, and we have slowly stepped away from it. But that's what I want to share with you, and I want to share why using plants and using oils are just so incredibly healing for our body. But right here, I really want to insert just to say I'm not a doctor, coming from a total point of humility. I'm a constant learner, and I'm just simply sharing what I'm learning. I have so much to go. I'm sure I can make mistakes, but I want to share the basics. And I really don't think that most people want to know much more than just the basics, but the basics make incredible sense. So that's where my little disclaimer. But while my faith overlaps a lot of things in this book that we're going to talk about, I have many friends who don't share my faith, and I want to approach this live using the Bible, but as a history book. We all can agree that the Bible is a great resource for telling us how people lived years before Jesus walked and years after. The Bible has hundreds of references to essential oils before the scientific method was the golden rule. Humankind used every part of the plant. We used their seeds, their resin, their bark, their leaves, their stems. Like, we hear so many things. They used them for healing, for aromatics, for spirituality. The Catholics, they still use frankincense. They have their ball of frankincense that they use, and they use these things still today. So we know that we've been using these for hundreds and hundreds of years. The Apocrypha is a part of the Old Testament that was written between 300 BC and 100 AD. There's other books that are written that are sourced and referenced in this book between 200 BC and 600 AD. And what they do is they give us an idea as to how people lived then and on a daily basis, and what their daily life was like, and how they used plants to heal themselves or to worship, or to provide aroma, or to clean themselves. It teaches us how plants were actually used before they had medicine, before they actually had hospitals. So essential oils are called essential. Why? Because they're the necessary part of the plant. They are the lifeblood of the plant, and they contain the essence, or the essential, the essence of the plant. So while we view them from a perspective of how essential oils help us, the oils are actually vital and essential to the life and the processes of a plant. God created plants with as much intricacy as he created humans and animals. And this, I think, is what is my aha moment that's just fascinating, that plants are smart because God created them. They're not synthetic. Plants are intelligent. And you know why? They know how to photosynthesize. They know how to do the whole photosynthesis process. Nobody's sitting there telling a plant what to do. They do it because they're intelligent, because God made them and he created them with such details. And in the same way that certain animals have, we have porcupines that have spines for protection, or skunks that have stinky smell for protection. Plants are created with parts for protection in order to sustain their own lives. So think about a cactus. A cactus has spines to protect animals from eating the cactus. For self-preservation, think about, how about succulents? They just hold tons and tons of water because they're out in the middle of the desert where there's no water. So they're created specifically to hold water to keep themselves alive, to prevent bugs from eating them. Herbs, my herb garden, bugs don't touch herb gardens because there's something about the herbs that bugs won't eat. I mean, every plant is created intelligently and for a purpose. And it's truly remarkable to me that the detail of the plants, as a believer, I believe those plants are smart because God created them. He created them for Adam and Eve and for you and me because he put Adam and Eve in a garden. He did not put Adam and Eve in a lean-to or a teepee or a shelter. He didn't plant a CVS on the corner by the fig tree and the oak tree. Their life was perfect in the garden, full of aromatic flowers. And the Bible tells us that he gave them everything they needed. Can you just imagine the beauty and the scent and the peace that was in the Garden of Eden? It's just amazing. So, okay, let's go back to the science. So essential oils, which we've established are the lifeblood of the plant, are teeny weeny tiny molecules, 500 AMU. AMU just means atomic mass units, but we don't have to worry about that part. Just remember the 500. And that means they're so tiny that they can pass through and penetrate every single cell in our body, including passing the blood-brain barrier. And passing the blood-brain barrier is huge because modern medicine is trying to figure out how to create things to pass the blood-brain barrier. I know my son has ADD, and fish oil is good for ADD. So our psychiatrist told us that they make a fish oil that actually has breast milk in it because they know that breast milk passes the blood-brain barrier. And that's a way to get fish oil into the brain to help with focus. Otherwise, you'd be having to drink fish oil to get enough fish oil into the body because it won't pass the blood-brain barrier. So the fact that essential oils can pass the blood-brain barrier is huge. They can carry with them things across the blood-brain barrier to heal the body and to treat us. So it's also important to note that the fatty acids that we cook with, so opposite of essential oils like olive oil, canola oil, they have molecules that are much too large to get into our human cells. That's my accent. Cells. They are over 1,000 AMU. So we're comparing 500 AMU essential oils to 1,000 AMU. So people will say that if they put peppermint essential oil or cinnamon or something that's real spicy, that within a minute, if they put it on the bottom of their foot, they can taste it in their mouth because it has gone through every single tiny cell in our body, and which is so amazing. And that is why they're so powerful for treating our body, that they can get into every single cell. So, using the Bible as a history book, essential oils were inhaled, they were used topically, orally, by everyone during Bible times and before and beyond. Their benefits are referenced because they use them physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually throughout the Bible. And other resources from the day are cited in this book. This is a great book, just a great book. Current day medications are manufactured by man, by us. They lack carbon, meaning they're inorganic. They don't have that life force that a plant has, and therefore they don't have intelligence of plants. They can't photosynthesize. They can't do things that they're not supposed to do. But every medication that is man-made has a side effect. Truth. We know the list because we hear them on the commercials. They say, it could cause, and 15,000 different side effects come up. But I work in a skilled nursing home, and every day I see it, and I see these sweet patients, and they're given their medicine, and there's like 25 pills, and they look at me and they say, what are all of these for? And when I ask their nurse what all the different pills are for, there's really only 2 medications they need. But then this one is a side effect because this one causes GI issues, and this one's a side effect because this one causes blood pressure issues. And then all of a sudden they're taking 25 pills that they don't need to, and they're only there to offset uncomfortable side effects. And this is why we need doctors. These are chemicals. Medicine can be very dangerous whenever we mix drugs or they're taken improperly. We need skilled chemists with a large knowledge to supervise our use of medication so we don't kill ourselves. Let's see where I lost my spot. But this we've learned this with opiate use. So this is another great book. Can you see that? The opioid addiction. I'm kind of fascinated about that because I was using long-term pain medicine. But medicines are literally not created to heal us. Another aha moment for us. Medicines are masking our issues. So we get into this long, vicious cycle of having to take a medicine for the rest of our life. That's why opioids are addictive, because pain medicines aren't healing the problem. Pain medicines are masking. They're a Band-Aid. They're putting a Band-Aid on a problem. And then when in pain medicine, you've used it so long and it doesn't work, then you have to up your pain medicine and up your pain medicine and up your pain medicine, but yet nothing is ever getting healed. And not even pain medicine. I mean, I'm a great example. I'm on thyroid medication, and I've been told I will never be able to go off my thyroid medication because now my thyroid is dead. It doesn't know how to make its hormones for itself, and I have to take it forever. So that medicine was not created to heal my body. That medicine was created to where I get stuck in this vicious cycle of having to take continuous meds. So I'm going to insert this disclaimer right here too. Antibiotics saved my life. I am eternally grateful to Alexander Fleming. He created penicillin, by the way, the very first antibiotic. I was on 10 IV antibiotics at once to fight the sepsis in my body. So I'm not here to dog Western medicine. I believe in it. It saved my life, and I wanted it to save my life. I wanted that medicine. But on the flip side, I also believe that the overuse of that long-term low-dose antibiotic use when I was in high school contributed to all of my health issues that started when I was in high school. So there's that. That's a whole nother ball of wax. But antibiotics are great. They solve an incredible problem. They save lives. But we've got to figure out when to bring in the big guns and when to try natural alternatives, because I do believe that God created the ability for us to learn how to use antibiotics. So compare that to essential oils, going back there to man-made oils. They really don't have serious side effects. And in fact, there's so many essential oils that when they work in harmony together, they actually work together and make even greater benefits. The little devil's advocate in me here, talking about they're not deadly, wants to say food allergies, but I have no knowledge in immunology And I know that allergies are increasing over time. So I really have to believe and know that Adam and Eve were not allergic to tree nuts. They didn't have specific allergies. Sorry, my cord's stuck on my foot. So essential oils, when used together, do work in harmony versus working against each other. They don't cause harmful drug interactions like synthetic drugs, and we don't have to necessarily have the supervision of a doctor to use them. Think about Native Americans. I've always been fascinated with the Native American culture and how they were able to use plants for healing and all sorts of things. It's just, being from Oklahoma, that fascinates me to no end. I want to study that too. But when you use essential oils, you don't get addicted and you don't get stuck using oils for life because they embody a healing power. So they know how to heal what needs to be healed. They know how to go in, find what's bad, get rid of it or heal it, and leave in place what's good, versus an antibiotic that goes in and wipes out the good and the bad because it doesn't have power, it doesn't have knowledge, it doesn't have intelligence. So there is power and knowledge and intelligence because oils are organic, meaning made with carbon, made by God. I get so excited I lose my place. But essential oils were everything in this world for much longer than pharmaceuticals have been used in this world. And their use has been referenced throughout the Bible, throughout many of these side references in Arabia, Lebanon, Persia, Babylon, Southeastern Europe, Egypt, Libya, Africa, India, the Himalayas, Indonesia, China, the list goes on. It's not just Bible times for those skeptics. Essential oils were all they had before the scientific method and medications and hospitals and came about. So oils were used for worship. They're still used for worship in Catholic churches today, I know, to be spiritually uplifting. I know when my grandmother was buried, she was Catholic, and they waved frankincense over her casket as she was buried. 70% of the books of the Bible mention essential oils, their uses, and plants from where they came from. The book says that this book, the Healing Oil of the Bibles, says that the Bible makes reference to 1,035 essential oils and 33 different species of herbs and trees. And that's not to say there's more out there that it didn't use. That's just what was worthy enough or talked about in the times that was mentioned in the Bible. So as a history book, we know that essential oils were used in abundance. And one of my favorite verses as I was trying to get well and get healed, but Ezekiel 47:12 says, their fruit will be used for food and their leaves will be used for healing, referencing plants. We all know that when we're speaking of plants are not only to be used for healing, but they're used for our nutrition. We need them for both purposes. The Bible references plant oils such as olive oil, almond, flaxseed. They were used for fuels, to keep for light. They were used for aromatic essential oils, for flavor, for perfumes, which were incredibly valuable. Incense for embalming people. They were also referred to for emotional release. I'm going to read this. This is from introduction, page 19, but they were also used for emotional release, mental clearing, spiritual upliftment, physical healing, and prevention of disease. The word anoint, we hear that word a lot, but the anoint shows a lot in the Bible, and all anoint means is to massage or rub with oil. So healing oils referenced in the Bible include aloe, cassia, cypress, galbanum, frankincense, cedarwood, spikenard, myrrh. There's tons of oils that are mentioned in the Bible. But the birth of the scientific method started between 500 to 600 years ago, and people began to look for answers to life questions outside of the church, which was new because for hundreds of years, people went to church to get anointed. They came to the church to get healed. They didn't have hospitals. Healing came from the church. So when scientific method came about, culture became more secular, and we began to ease away from the church for our dependence on health and healing and put less faith in God-made solutions and more dependence in man-made solutions. And it has continued to evolve and evolve and evolve to a point where it's less about faith and it's more about objective measurements. So I think that's a good place to pause. I'm getting really excited, and I hope I haven't lost a lot of people, but I just want to introduce what essential oils are, why they're essential, and what their role in the plant and human healing is, and how plants are truly intelligent. That just fascinates me when you think about the details of a plant. But to tie that into my discussion, I did a video before that was talking about the hemp plant created by God with special purposes in mind. This is a part of a video that I made when I first started researching CBD, and I'm going to quote my quote. But cannabidiol, which is CBD, is one of more than 100 unique cannabinoid compounds that are found in the oily resin. Remember, we said that plants were used for their resin of the cannabis plant. The gooey resin is concentrated in the clusters of cannabis flowers. That's what we said, the flowers are the most important part of getting cannabis, the purest form, which are covered by tiny trichomes, trichomes. Trichomes are specialized structures that contain many oily medicinal compounds, including CBD, THC, and various other terpenes. We're going to get to the discussion of terpenes. But those are the two most studied terpenes in the hemp plant. That's what we all know, CBD and THC. But the mushroom-shaped trichomes that protect the plant from heat and ultraviolet radiation. The oil also has antifungal and antibacterial and anti-insecticidal properties that deter predators. Plants have to protect themselves from predators as well so that we can use them, humans. The stickiness of the resin provides another defensive layer by trapping bugs. The same oily resin that protects the health of the plant and promotes the lifeblood of the plant and includes components that are beneficial for human health found in CBD oil, which is why I get so excited about CBD oil, because when you start understanding the intricacies about how it works, it's just a light bulb moment. And especially, and I'm just kind of going off here, when we just trust medicine and we just trust, I can't say names of medicines, but when I needed an anti-inflammatory, I just run in and get one. But you know what? In the long run, that's hurting my kidneys. And I see patients on a daily basis that are in kidney failure or on dialysis. And more than likely, it's from all the medications they've taken. Whereas CBD oil bypasses the kidneys, we excrete it. And if there's extra, you don't OD it, it just comes out in our bowels. So it's plant-based. And it's not harming our body. I don't know if you're getting the excitement. Please get the excitement. So plants have an incredibly intricate design to protect them in the wild. They're all so very different, but that same design benefits are used to protect itself can also be used to benefit the human body. And why is that? Because they're intelligently and incredibly supernaturally made by God for our purposes of nutrition and healing. Are you excited? Are you on the edge of your seat? Because I just find it so fascinating how everything on this earth is orchestrated for what seems to be such a simple purpose, yet at the same time, a much greater purpose. The fact that I have never thought about the tiny detail of a plant and why each are so different just blows my mind. They each serve a God-given purpose for us, for our healing, for our nutrition. So exciting. So I'm going to leave you on that. Come back soon. The next live, I was up till 2:00 in the morning. I couldn't wait to do this today, reading this book. So our next section that I'm going to talk about is the how and why oils can heal in a little bit more detail. So it's not just, oh, I'm putting the snake oil on my body and I hope it works. Or is it just kind of an effect that we think is working, but it's really not. So that's all for me, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope maybe, just maybe, I've taught you something, because I learned so much. And I love, love, love being able to share what I've learned. Have a great day.